makes me look like I'm so anti-establishment, right? It makes me look like I'm I'm a threat to the powers that be. I didn't like that bit. You know, yeah, that's what I did, but you know, well, I'm you know, and then you might coax them a bit and say, well, you know, it's anonymous and don't worry, blah blah blah, and the participant will be like, okay, sure, no problem, right? But they might still be amazed at what you were able to do. I knew you were doing research, for example, on whistleblowing, but I didn't think that images, a discourse on courage would pop up. I didn't think that you would have framed it in such an anti-establishment discourse or paradigm. Obviously, you're not going to be saying these words, but you get the idea, right? You can get the sense from the participant. This is just an example. So, the precise nature of consent for the participant may only become clear eventually at the end of the research, you know, and that's precisely at the moment when you sense at the end, after member checking, a serious sense of discontent, a serious sense of discomfort with your findings, that you really have to offer them the opportunity, right, to forfeit the research. Now, if you're any good at what you do, there's a sense in which you can encourage the participant and thank the participant for their participation, because there's something that they're giving you and that they've already given you. So I really don't look at this as a problem, to be honest with you. I know for a novice researcher, they'd be like, that's the last time I would want to ask the participant is member checking, do they still consent? Because basically my research is concluded. I've done all the work, I've compiled all the data, I've put everything together, and now I'm going to member check with my participant, and they might be able to forfeit at that moment. I mean, all my work is gone. And the point is, does it happen? Sure, it happens. What's the likelihood of it happening? It's very small, right? If you're moderately good at what you do, the participant is going to sign off and say, yeah, I think what you wrote was something interesting. It isn't something that I necessarily saw in myself, but yeah, it's accurate. And I want to thank you for giving me the time to you know, contribute to the research. So still, even at the end, they need to have that opportunity. Might we tacitly expect interviewees also to be interested in reading their own interview transcripts, or to contribute in other ways to the analysis of the final written product? Yes, there are different types of research that will allow sort of a co-collaborative experience between researcher and participant, right? In a more Freirian sense, right? Where the participant is also the researcher is also the participant. Participatory action research follows roughly this paradigm. To be honest, I haven't done any significant PAR research in my career yet. The research that I do, qualitative research that I do, is usually generalized for sort of very, very esoteric, abstract concept formation. So usually when I present, usually the only participants that I'm interested in are participants who have experiences that are almost impossible to describe, right? That's just me, myself, right? I like really, really conceptually difficult discourse. Why? Because I think, and this is totally off topic, I probably shouldn't even get down this road, but just as a quick aside, just as a demonstration for me, I think the more complex an experience is that a participant has actually had, the more complex and difficult it is for the participant to even find the words to be able to explain the phenomena. I'm not so much concerned with the phenomena as I am personally, and my type of qualitative research is far different from anything that I discuss here. I'm more concerned with how is it that the participant formulated the ideas to articulate the words, right? So it's the formulation of ideas for words, but that's a whole nother ball of wax. And I might, much later this year when I start my, I'm going to do Nietzsche for a little bit after this, then I'm going to do eschatology, but later in the year I'll do ideological, a series on ideology, something I love. But it's going to be way advanced, so I might discuss that there. Right? So yeah, we want to make sure that the participant has access to the findings, and in some sense, if you're doing the type of research that will allow the participant to co-contribute to the actual written final narrative, then that's something that you might do on your own accord. Okay, so some of the pros and cons of this, of member checking, that is. Pros, divergence and divergence and divergent outcomes can strengthen the research, right? If it's the case that the participant, right, the participant expects, I'll put expectation. The participant has an expectation of B, but what ends up happening of A, sorry, the participant has an expectation that this is going to occur, A, right? The reason why Dr. Campbell is interviewing me about whistleblowing is because I had a famous whistleblowing case, and you know, people knew me, and I've been interviewed 100 times, but I think Dr. Campbell's going to do the same spiel. Tell me about the events. Why did you become a whistleblower? Sort of. But his research was totally different, right? I didn't expect him to go to this. I didn't expect him to take it to that level, right? I didn't expect him to say, to ask me the questions that he did. I didn't expect him to draw the conclusions that he did. The point is that this is divergence. This space between what your expectation was and what really happened is divergence, right? So divergence, participant divergence is the sort of distinction, not the distinction, it is the separation, I guess, conceptual separation, that's the only way I can think of putting this. Divergence is the conceptual, because there really isn't a definition per se that I've been able to find. I would say something along the lines of divergence is the conceptual separation or distinction. Yeah, divergence is the conceptual distinction between the participant expectation and the research findings, right? So that distinction, that separation between participant expectations and what was actually found is divergence in a qualitative sense. With respect to the idea of divergence, it's not a bad thing, right? You would think, oh no, that's a horrible thing, right? The participant expected this to happen, and what ended up happening was something completely different. You know, this could undermine my research. Absolutely not. This happened to me. I had multiple, I mean, the whole point of my research, I didn't think this in the beginning, when I was doing my research with Holocaust survivors, was that I had repeated divergence both in my own theory and theoretical analysis, which was freaking insane to try and sort through, and with my participants. My participants expected that I was going to ask them about their experience in the Holocaust, like they'd been asked 1 billion times by 1 billion people. I wasn't so interested in their experiences in the Holocaust. My questions were of a different nature, right? My questions led to a relationship of their belief system with God, their understanding of human capacity for evil, their understanding as far as forgiveness and reparation and blah, 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 and so on and so on, right? So that there was almost undeniably, with respect to the participants that I had, a completely different relationship that they had with me after the research had been concluded, and also a completely different relationship that they had with their own life story, right? Because it is a relationship. It's the weirdest thing to say, and immediately the movie Memento pops into my head, but I have a relationship with my life story, and maybe in other video series I'll talk about this, because it's a bit off topic, but there is a sense in which I preserve my life story and I view it from a particular vantage point. And what we do at the end is to tell the participant that, look, it's not a bad thing, or it's not a bad thing or a good thing that there's this divergence between what you anticipated or expected and the results that I'm showing you now. Because you even have an opportunity now. You know, should I add more? Did I miss something? Right? If the divergence is too much, it creates too much sort of, it wouldn't go as far as cognitive dissonance, but if it creates too much trepidation in the participant, you can always say, hey, is there something that I should add to basically get you back to a level of me meeting the expectations that you had, me satisfying your anticipations, and then by all means infuse that, right? But it's not necessarily a bad thing. One of the detriments, however, one of the disadvantages, however, is that member checking can result in conflicting opinions regarding research interpretations. And this is obvious, right? Member checking, the process, the fact that I am engaging the participant in their narrative, and the participant is telling me herself that I got her story wrong, what can I do? There's nothing that I can do, right? If she says flat out, I got the story wrong, I got the story wrong, right? If she refuses to allow me to publish my findings, I can't publish my findings, right? So the idea is that there is a risk in which you could have misinterpreted or misrepresented, right? In this representation, right? You could have misrepresented the narrative. It's important that you don't, I mean, this would be a noob error, like out of this world, and you really shouldn't have this problem. Theoretically, could it theoretically happen? Yes. Has it happened to me? Never. Has it happened to any of my many graduate students? Never. Right? I've never seen it happen where you actually go. I've seen people opt out of their participation. I've seen that. I've seen participants with graduate students say, hey, I'm not, I thought I could do this research. I'm not feeling comfortable anymore. I'm sorry, but I have to opt out. I've seen that happen many times. I've never seen it be the case that after, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but one of the things that you have to recognize as I guess, fear as a qualitative research is, man, it might be, there's a bit of anxiety in reporting your findings to the source, right? Because what are you going to do if the source says you got it wrong? You can't do anything. The whole point is, for me, member checking isn't something that I just do exclusively at the end. I do this, and there are practices that we have in conflict resolution. It's one of the terms, and I'll just put it up here, I'm not going to describe it. It's called reframing, right? Reframing. I reframe what the person says. It's a way of instantly member checking, right? Member checking as a grand reassessment, reframing as a minor, immediate assessment. So I told her I couldn't stand what she said, and she pissed me off because she was a lying bastard. So you were upset with Mary for reporting you to the authorities. Yeah, I was upset with Mary. Yeah, I was upset with Mary. Yeah, it's a member check, right? There is a sense in which, obviously, you're taking out the hostile and toxic language, but you're reframing what the participant said and getting immediate validation that your interpretation was spot on, right? So I can go in much more detail, but I think that should be clear for now. So that concludes section 1.4 of my analysis into ethics and qualitative methods research. This section focused on consent and member checking, both very important aspects of establishing credible qualitative research. With that, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Have a great day.